I do not know what happened today between the hours of 1 and 4 in this studio, but on behalf of the Team 980, I have nothing to say because I'm not a spokesperson for the station. I'm not responsible. I walked into some weird energy. They were late getting done. Russell said it was Lenell's fault. Lenell was laughing in his face. Anthony, I don't know what just happened on this. We were prepping for our show. I was not listening. So I don't know.
Hey, I'm just as lost. I didn't even know there was bad energy, juju, weird tension going on over there.
Whatever happened on Windbag Wednesday became Weird Windbag Wednesday, and you can listen to it on the Chris Russell Show podcast. Find out for yourselves.
Yeah.
I might listen later just to be like, what? What happened?
Yeah.
And they do it again tomorrow. That's my
Nice.
favorite part about them hating each other by the end of the show on Wednesday is they then go run it back on Throwdown Thursday tomorrow.
Well, at least they get to, decompress a little bit, take the rest of the day, do some woosah, and then come back and have I think Thursdays are better than Wednesday. I don't know.
I feel like they are. I don't know why. I don't know whether they've just got pent-up energy by Wednesday, and then by Thursday they've exhausted each other.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe
Lenell's got
Wednesday.
overtime tonight, apparently, in between then. So, he'll just yell at no one.
Yeah.
Give him a call. What's the number over there? 800-636-1067, I think is I haven't done a show over there in a long time.
I've never done a show over there, so I don't know.
Tonight, whatever that phone number is, you can sign up and Lenell can yell at you.
Nice.
Yeah. Lenell Willingham, the immersive experience. I'm guessing part of what they were yelling about was the Kyle Kuzma trade. The Washington Wizards have traded Kyle Kuzma to the Milwaukee Bucks for Chris Middleton, A.J. Johnson, and a pick swap in 2028. Patrick Baldwin Jr. and a second-round pick of some sort is also going to Milwaukee. The pick swap goes something like this. In 2028, Portland, Washington, and Milwaukee will all have draft picks. They will pick in the Portland, Washington, Milwaukee order pretty much no matter what. So if Washington finishes with a better record than Milwaukee, they'll swap. Portland gets but it also depends on where Portland is. Basically, Portland gets the best of the 3 picks. Washington gets the second best of the picks, and then Milwaukee gets the last of those teams' 3 picks. Considering where those teams are in their current structures, there's a great chance that that really doesn't do a whole lot. Because Milwaukee is the best team of those 3. Giannis is probably still going to be good in 2028. And as long as that's the case and the Wizards haven't quite popped yet, and I don't know. The Blazers are technically ahead of the Wizards in their rebuild, but I actually don't know that they have any pieces that are great unless Scoot Henderson takes a huge turn. I mean, they've got some really nice pieces in Shaedon Sharpe and on down the list, but Blazers aren't going anywhere quickly. But 2028 is a long time, so we'll see. Point is, I don't put a lot of stock into that pick swap. I would have much rather just gotten a pick. Be like, hey, we get an extra pick. We don't have to swap. We get, if you have to pick swap with Portland, that's fine, but then that pick is ours, and we're not giving you ours back. That's what I would have preferred. But alas, all Milwaukee has to do is go, no, it's a pick swap or no deal. And then Washington is kind of between a rock and a hard place because it does appear that there was not an enormous market for Kyle Kuzma because Kyle has not been particularly good this year. He's also Kyle Kuzma. And with all due respect to Kyle, who I think played pretty well here for a long time and I think was a good soldier for a while as well. Obviously, the last couple of weeks, I think he got kind of fed up with the rebuild and made that publicly known. And at that point, I was like, well, that dude's not going to be here by the time the deadline passes. And good prediction, Craig. Really stepped out on a limb on that one. There's a lot of guys floating around the league that could score a lot of points if you gave them the amount of shots that Kyle Kuzma had over the last couple of years. That's not to say there's 100 of them, but there might be 40 of them. And Kyle's somewhere near the bottom of that 40. There's other players that are not in that 40 that are just better overall basketball players with how they pass, the consistency with which they rebound. I think that's probably one of the most disappointing things about Kuzma in his run in Washington. He was a good rebounder when he was with the Lakers. He has been an inconsistent rebounder at best in his time here. And maybe now that he's with Giannis and will be making a run at a championship in Milwaukee's eyes, then they will get a better version, a championship version of Kyle Kuzma that is happy averaging 16 points a game. It also gets 9 rebounds, 4 or 5 assists, and he's going to help their tempo. And Chris Middleton obviously has not been very good for them this year. But that archetype of player, they clearly just do not. There clearly wasn't a huge market for him around the league. Otherwise, I think Washington would have done something else. But what you get in Chris Middleton is a really phenomenal pro. This guy is a former G League guy, second-round pick, who worked his way up to being a multiple-time All-Star, second-best player on their championship team in 2021. And he's still, I think the hope is that he still has something left in the tank. The hope is that he, at 33 years old, coming off surgery on both ankles last summer, is just playing his way into shape. And because Milwaukee's being competitive, that they couldn't afford to just let him do what he needed to do to get back in shape and to kind of try stuff out where it might not work. And now here in D.C., they can give him more minutes, let him try to round his game back. And you might be going, wait, why would you give him that in D.C.? Like, isn't the point to be bad this year? Well, if you can rehab him and thus rehab his kind of standing in the league, you can then trade him this summer or next trade deadline, assuming that he opts in to the $34 million player option that he has for next season. And now you can turn Chris Middleton into a first-round pick potentially. And that's how you get ultimately what is essentially 2 firsts for Kyle Kuzma. Because here's the other part of this. The headline of this deal is Kyle Kuzma for Chris Middleton. But A.J. Johnson was picked one selection before Keyshawn George in the last draft. So while he is not a first-round pick that Will Dawkins gets to use, he is certainly someone that fits the Will Dawkins current Wizards prototype of great positional size, really good athleticism. He actually had his best game as an NBA pro. He hasn't played a lot of NBA games this season. He's been mostly in the G League for them. But he played like real minutes earlier in the week. I almost wonder if that was Will Dawkins being on the phone being like, can we see him in an NBA game for like 30 minutes and then we'll make this deal? And he went out and scored 13 points. Like he had a quick release on his shot, showed some good athleticism. He attacked the rim. Like I watched a couple highlights. I was like, I get it. There's some pop to this kid. And again, he's 6'5" at the guard position with really great length. So you get a quasi first-round pick. And is it a lottery pick? Of course not. But when you're trading with these contenders, you're probably not going to get that. You're getting late first. And in many ways, you're seeing if you can get multiple firsts to then package for a better first. But you get an actual player here who is a rookie who now fits your timeline. So that's a quasi first-round pick. And then what can you flip Middleton for ultimately? And in the meantime, Middleton is an A-plus dude in the locker room. And you replace a guy in Kuzma who had become an F in the locker room. You replace a guy who, and I'm not reporting anything, I'm just going based purely off the public comments here, that clearly did not want to be a part of the rebuild. And I felt like Kyle came into this year a little bit different. Talking to him at Media Day this year was definitely different. Like when they traded Denny and some of the other guys that were kind of his age, like you just kind of lose the I guess like you lose the potential that we could be good, right? Last year, I thought the Wizards were going to be better than they wound up being. And I think Kyle probably did too. He's like, I don't know, Jordan Poole's a good basketball player. We just won 30-something games with Brad, me, and KP. And yeah, we're going to miss KP, but like, could me, Jordan Poole, and this collection of guys go out, if Denny takes a step up, like could we win 40-something games and be onto something? And we'll have this nice smooth pivot and I'll be the star? Like Kyle could sell himself on that going into 2023. coming into 2024, like they trade Denny. They're clearly got these young guys. They're prioritizing that. And for like Jordan Poole, JP was still like, I'm in, like the ball, we have a more concrete role for me. Like he understood where his place in the team was. And I think it was a more concrete place, a better place than it was last year in 2023. For Kyle, that ultimately was going to mean a downsized role as guys like Koulibaly and George get those minutes at the wing. And he had enough. And I get it. Kyle's not young in his career. He's tasted a championship, and he's also now tasted being a 20-point scorer. He's proven he can do that. And he's 29 years old. Like, he wants to go compete again. And that's his prerogative to want it. But he also signs an extension here. And I know in the NBA, you kind of take the money and figure it out later, but like, you're not in control. The price you pay for that is you give up control. And so Kyle goes public with his complaints. He winds up traded a week later. I don't think that's coincidence. And there's nothing, like, if we learn anything from the Commanders season, there's nothing more important than the locker room. There's nothing more important than getting all the guys on the same page. And it's harder to do in the NFL because you got 53 plus practice squad, whatever. You got 17, 18, your two-way guys, whatever, in the NBA. You get one sour apple, especially guys got a big role, whole room goes bad pretty instantly. And you go from a guy who was the sour apple in the room, and again, that is what Kyle became, and that might have been a strategic choice by Kyle. That's not me bad-mouthing Kyle Kuzma. But he had become, by his own choice, sick and fed up with the rebuild, get me out of here. And now you have a guy in Middleton who's probably not going to be super psyched to be here, and who knows, they might even buy him out. But for whatever time he is around, he will make what Will Dawkins likes to call cultural deposits in that locker room, and things that he teaches Bub Carrington, Bilal Koulibaly, Alex Sarr, will be things that matter to them for the rest of their career. And thus, even though this feels like not the great, like it's not a 2 first-round pick return for Kyle Kuzma like we had hoped to see from the Wizards side of it, it's still not a bad return. They also add more draft assets, and now I believe they are up to 27 draft picks between now and 2031, which hopefully they will use well as lottery tickets, as Will is a very, very good drafter, and so he'll hit on some of those, but also some of those get packaged together and flipped for better players and picks moving forward. We'll take your calls on this next. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Kyle Kuzma on the way out. Chris Middleton, A.J. Johnson on the way in. Your thoughts, Wizards fans, next. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Verun Shenoy of the Washington Post, who covers the Wizards, he told us last week that he didn't think that the Kyle Kuzma trade was on the horizon, but reported in the Post today after this trade went down that really changed in the last 3 to 4 days, that a source told him that things just started to heat up with this Milwaukee trade, and kind of the dynamics between Kuzma and Washington changed over the last couple of days. So Verun will be on the show at 5, and we'll ask him what more detail he can share with us about why ultimately Washington pulls the trigger on this trade. Again, Kyle Kuzma to the Bucks. Chris Middleton, AJ Johnson in return. Johnson, the 23rd pick in last June's NBA draft. And just real quick before we get to some of the calls here, 301-230-0980. We got a few on hold and a few lines open if you want to get in. 301-230-0980. Washington has to do two things, and one is a lot easier than the other. One, they have to make sure that they are maximizing their chances to get a superstar. Like, they are building around a hole currently. And what's weird about that is you also actually have to build around that hole. Like, you can't just do one thing. You have to do both. You have to build around this hole where eventually you will be putting, hopefully, Cooper Flagg or Ace Bailey or one of these guys in this upcoming draft, and then maybe one more in 2026 in that draft where they have some extra picks and probably will not be very good next year. So you have to do that, but you also do have to build around. Like, you eventually want that centerpiece to come in and have the right pieces around them. And that's where I think Washington has actually done a fairly good job. And in doing so, by the way, you're going to have to take some flyers. The NBA draft scouting process is very, very difficult. You're going to have to take some swings. And if you're taking some swings, then you are going to have to obviously have a lot of lottery tickets, because you're probably going to have some misses in there. And that's what the Wizards have done exceptionally well at, is with all these second-round picks, et cetera, they have gotten a ton of guys where they can take swings on. And if one of them hits, that's all you need. You need one. You need one Draymond Green. You need one Chris Middleton. You need one of these second-rounders to turn into an all-star, and you're a genius GM for the rest of your career. But also, they've taken now AJ. They took a draft where they're like, most of the experts were like, this draft sucks. And they now have 4 dudes with some real promise out of it. They got Alex Sarr. Looks like he's going to be a generational, potentially defensive talent. We'll see what he can be offensively. But defensively, he just does some things where you're like, oh, my God. And he's very likely going to win Rookie of the Year if he comes back healthy and plays well in the second half of the season. Bub Carrington, a lot of promise there. Super young still. He's only 19 years old, as is Sarr. Keyshawn George, who, for a pick in the 20s, there's definitely a rotational piece there. AJ Johnson looks like, we'll see. But now they have him out of this draft. And by the way, Bilal Coulibaly, who they took last year, is still just 20 years old. So they have a lot of young pieces that they can experiment and say, hey, what are your roles? What is your ultimate role on this team? Maybe what is your role on another team? If we can flip you for another bigger piece because one of these guys pops, but they've got too many of them in the next couple of years. They need a more veteran presence, and someone else needs to dump a salary. And that's the other part of this, right? The last piece I'll say real quick before we get to the phones is getting some of these young guys means that when the next Luka situation happens, and the Luka situation is almost a bad example because he was traded in the top secret dark of night and there was no bidding war. But a veteran becomes available like that you want to get in on. You have to have something that the other team values. And taking flyers on these super talented young guys means that you could potentially get either your centerpiece or maybe your number 2 piece by trading one of these young guys if a team gets in a salary cap trouble or wants to pivot, or a star just flat out is like, please trade me. And all of a sudden Washington with a bunch of young pieces looks like a viable destination because they have a war chest of assets. So they've done a good job around the periphery. But if you don't wind up getting the star right eventually, which is probably going to happen through the draft, then none of it matters. But none of it ever matters if you don't get the star right. Let's go to Tony to get the call started at 301-230-0980. Tony, you are on the Hoffman Show.
What's up, Craig? This is Aries. Tony, we talked the other day, and my opinion on this, I don't like the draft. Seemed like, we traded old for somebody young. And me personally, it seemed like to me, again, by us getting a young player, even going through the draft, it seemed like there's still going to be a setback because you still going to be building and building. I could see if the team was like mid-rate, mid-level, like we still have some good players. We just need to add a few to keep it going and all that. But we tore this team completely down, Craig. And it's to the point, like, we totally reconstruction this. It's not like a house that was already set, and we just had to, revitalize certain things of it. But we in total rebuild. So, me personally, I thought they just bid at the first thing that came after Kuzma. I think they should have dangled him out there a little bit more and see what was out there that they could have got a little bit more better.
But the thing is, Tony, like you say, this total rebuild, like it's a surprise to you. Like this has been the plan the entire time.
Yeah, I know, but how many more years we gotta keep going through the rebuild?
I think we might have had part of this discussion the other day, but like, what's the other option?
Yeah. None really.
Right.
Craig, I meant to say too. I was here. Matter of fact, when the Bullets/Wizards won the championship, I was in high school and everything. So that was the glory years of the Elvin Hayes and Wes Unseld and all that.
Yeah.
Then when the Gilbert Arenas and Antoine Jameson and Brendan Haywood years, we was doing good. One for LeBron James every year. It seemed like we had to face him, and he always knocked us out every year. So that could have been a possibility of a good years with Karan Butler and everybody. And the John Wall and Bradley Beal, what we went through with that. John Wall broke his wrist, and we never got past Boston. So, me personally, I just hope I can live to see through some part of this getting better, before anything else. That's my personal gripe because, again, only thing for me, I'm saying again, it's fine if we get a first-round draft pick and everything else, but it just seems like it's still going to take some more time for them to develop, even though you still...
It is, Tony. And, Tony, I got to let you run because we're up against the clock, but I appreciate your call. And, I would just tell you this. Like, I hate that this is the way they have to do it. I also don't know how else they're supposed to do it. And as a sports fan, as an NBA fan, as someone who wants the Wizards to be good, I really struggle with this. And, I want to get on the radio and yell at Michael Winger and Will Dawkins and Ted Leonsis and be like, this is ridiculous. You're just moving chairs around the Titanic. It's easy to have that take. But I will go back to the conversation that I had, which you guys can go back in the podcast feed or go on YouTube and listen or watch with Ted Leonsis. And I kind of talked to him about, or I asked him the question about how do you ask fans to be this patient? And was that hard for you? Because unlike Michael and Will, who just got here, you've been through this. You've been at the top and in charge of this bad and unsuccessful run. And to ask fans to be patient, was there any part of you that was difficult? And he was basically like, well, what else do you want me to do? And I was like, nothing. My answer in reality was, do this 3 years ago. Do this, they screwed up the Beal thing so badly. And again, that is the thing at the center of this. The reason why this is going to be so long and arduous is because how they should have been able to speed this process up by enhancing their war chest faster and or acquiring a young piece, their version of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in the way that Oklahoma City did in the Paul George trade. They screwed up. The previous administration, not Winger and Dawkins, Ted specifically, along with Tommy Shepard, by giving Bradley Beal the no-trade clause. It meant they could not trade him for what he was truly worth on the market. They should have traded him even earlier than they did when he had a higher value. And instead, they signed him to a supermax deal with a no-trade clause and handcuffed themselves. And this is why we are where we are. And if you have another idea, another way for this team to be good, please call 301-230-0980. Please leave a comment. Please email me. Please DM me on Instagram. Please get in touch with me because I am just racking my brain trying to think of a better way. And I feel for the fans like Tony who have been fans their whole lives, and for them their whole lives has been, I remember when it was good. Because anyone born in 1980 or later doesn't. They haven't won 50 games since 79. I feel for you as fans. I see you. I hate this. Unfortunately, the way the NBA works, I just don't know that there's a better way. 301-230-0980. If you got one, let me know. Also, your thoughts on the Kuzma trade. He's headed to Milwaukee next on the Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the team at 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We are streaming live on YouTube too at the team 980. You can leave your comments there, and we'll get to some of them as we go here. Again, the phone number is 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. We're taking your calls on the Kyle Kuzma trade. The Kuzma era in D.C. is over. He is headed to Milwaukee. The return is Chris Middleton, A.J. Johnson, a first-round pick from last year, and a 2028 pick swap involving multiple teams. That's complicated, and if you really, really want to know about it and you haven't heard it yet, you can rewind in the Odyssey app to the beginning of the show. I explained it there. Let's keep it rolling with the calls. Let's go to Jay in Columbia. Jay, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show.
Hey, Craig. How you doing today?
Doing good, dude.
Good. Yep. So you wanted feedback. I got feedback. Ted needs to sell the team. Guy doesn't have a clue what he's doing. He's had plenty of time to prove to the community that he may be a brilliant tech mind, but he doesn't know his A from a hole in the wall when it comes to running a professional basketball team. I think the locals need to step up and campaign to have Ted sell the team. And if his feelings are hurt, too damn bad. He's had plenty of time to figure this out, and he's not doing it. This is a meh deal. I'm happy for Kuz because he gets out of purgatory. But this is same old BS. This is same. I mean, you listen to other pundits throughout the country, Brian Windhorst, Tim Bontemps, Tim McMahon. They laugh about the Wizards. They can't even get through the name before they start cracking up. They're a joke. And Ted needs to recognize the fact that he's made this franchise a big embarrassment throughout the community. Do the right thing and sell the team.
Jay, I hear you. Is I guess the best way I can say it. I struggle. I don't really struggle with this. Like, Ted has largely been a very bad owner of the Washington Wizards, and the product is the proof of that is the record. And if Ted is proud of their record on the court, then that is a problem. And if he wants to fight me over that, he can fight me over that. I also don't know that this actually was a mad deal, and I don't know that the path they're on right now is an alternative. And that's the thing that I struggle with, where I'm like, okay, let's pretend he sells the team, right? What does the new owner do immediately that changes the fortune of where they are? Like, the problem is they've already made.
For you on that, Craig.
What's that?
Nothing that Ted has ever done. Just do the total opposite.
Well, that's the thing, is he's currently doing the total opposite of what he should have done. He just made too many mistakes first and made it 10 times worse than it had to be. Ted did not tank previously. He did not greenlight something like this. They stupidly chased the playoffs in the 8 seed and let's get in and get a couple games of playoff gate, or let's mindlessly trade first-round picks throughout the entire Ernie Grunfeld era. Let's be super loyal to our players and give Bradley Beal the dumbest contract in the history of the league. And then he hires Michael and Will and is like, okay, guys. And Michael and Will are like, all right, good thing we got a long leash because we got to tear this thing down before we can even start to build it up. And that's the thing, is I just wonder if for this, where we are right now, the build that we are currently on, is there something else that could be done?
$1 for every time Michael and Will have looked at each other and said, what the hell do we get ourselves into? I'm not convinced. And look, these guys, to their credit, they've got a history of doing good things. But when you're working within the confines of Ted, it becomes Matrix level. And that's why I'm saying he has a tendency of figuring out just how to always do the wrong thing or be on the wrong side of history. And a reset, a fresh reset, is going to give us anything better than what we've had over the last 30 years. That's my mindset.
Yeah, Jay, I hear you. I appreciate the call. And look, if Ted announced tomorrow that he was selling the team and there was a different owner coming in to help guide the strategy, I'm not going to be like, oh, no, they've lost a basketball savant in Ted Leonsis. So I hear you. Thanks for the call, Jay.
Thanks.
All right. And that's the thing, right, is right now, what do you want to be different? Not really anything. I want you to keep drafting well. I want you to stackpile assets. I want you to I do think that some of these trade returns have been lackluster, but I also don't know that there were better trades out there. I trust that Michael and Will are smart enough that they're not turning down better trades and they're not doing their due diligence. They're smart guys who want to, they know what they need to do. And at the same time, it just feels so empty, because the hole they're in is just so ridiculously big. Lap, what you got on this Kuz trade?
Hey, what's up, Craig? Thanks for taking my call, man. I'm the biggest Wizard fan, man.
Well, you like to say that you're the biggest Wizards fan, but just get to your point.
Man, it's really hard to see a team like that. I'm glad the Commanders are doing what they're doing. Hopefully, have that for years to come, so I won't have to feel so as bad as I do with the Wizards. I'm hoping they tank it, man. And you were spot on for all of the decision making they did over the last, 15, 20 years, like especially Bernie. And it's just been bad, man. So hopefully, I don't even really know what else to really do. And I'm sick and tired of seeing Johnny Davis get like 5 minutes. Are you gonna cut the kid or play the kid? Because it's like he's a top 10 pick. So
What?
like
Okay, I'm done with this. Why do we? People care about the dumbest stuff in this town sometimes. If I get one more call about Johnny Davis, just know I'm going to hang up on you the second that you mentioned Johnny Davis. Johnny Davis was a top 10 pick that no one else in the league thought was a top 10 pick. Tommy Shepard got laughed at for that pick. So, he's not a good NBA player. I've seen some things from Johnny that I like over the years, but they see him every single day. They see him in practice. They see what he does. They know what they say, hey, this is what we need you to do. He's clearly not doing it. He gets out there. He does some nice things. He mostly can't play offense. And there's going to be someone on the end of a bench, always. You can't always just be rooting for the 17th guy on the roster. Stop doing that. Stop rooting for bad players. Start rooting for the good players. Care about the guys who are actually playing. Quit caring so much about the guys who are the 16th guy on the worst team in the league. Johnny Davis does not matter. Don't call radio stations asking about Johnny Davis. More calls, not about Johnny Davis, next. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We'll get to Verun Shenoy at 5 o'clock, the Washington Post Wizards beat reporter. Got a couple of calls to get to as well here at 301-230-0980. I just want to pick up on the last thought that I had, though. I'm not done ranting yet. There are smart people running teams in this town, and there are a lot of graves for the careers of people who are not very good at running teams in this town. And there is a select group of fans who cannot shut their mouths about the people and the players that were selected by the people that were bad at their jobs. And it really irks me because it is so plainly stupid. And I just don't get it. And it just happened. And I feel the need to say this. Stop doing that. Stop doing the thing where you call and you're the same person who wanted Ron Rivera fired, but wouldn't shut up about how Emmanuel Forbes didn't get a fair shot. Or, oh my God, Tommy Shepard's the worst executive I've ever seen in the history of the NBA. And then you're like, but Johnny Davis needs more minutes. Was he bad at his job or was he good at his job? Did he select good players or did he not? And the answer for both Ron Rivera and Tommy Shepard was they were bad at their jobs. Really bad at their jobs. Rivera worse than Shepard, which is saying something. Actually, I don't know. It's a race to the bottom and nobody wins. Both of them were bad. And yet, some of you guys can't stay out of the YouTube comments. Can't stop calling about players that were selected by them and in many ways are the reasons those guys got fired in the first place. Ron Rivera gets fired because he decided to pick Emmanuel Forbes over Christian Gonzalez. Tommy Shepard picks Johnny Davis over someone worth getting picked at that spot. All due respect to Johnny. Stop calling and doing that. Stop leaving me YouTube comments about players that are not good, that got executives fired because they selected them, and that was a huge mistake, and they deserve to be fired because of it, and then wondering why those players don't get minutes or don't get snaps or didn't get an opportunity. Because they're bad at the sport that they were selected to play. And they do not meet the standards of the new people who are actually, in Adam Peters' case, we know very good at the job. And in Winger and Dawkins' case, we think are pretty good at the job. And those new people who are better than the old people make the assessment that the old guy that got the old guy fired isn't good enough to play in the new regime. It doesn't make any sense. Stop doing it. You'll sound smarter. PSA from me to you. Okay, Anthony, I think I'm done with that rant now.
I think you got across to everybody. I hope you did.
If not, then oh my God, what does it say? Never mind. I just keep it moving. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Dontel, thanks for calling. Thanks for holding. Thanks for waiting through my rant. You're on the Hoffman Show.
Man, that rant, man, I thought you were trying to outdo Chris in the YIC from earlier this show.
Man, I don't go on true rants often, but when I do, I make sure to make them count.
Right on, right on. I just wanted to call, man, because I heard you ask if we knew anything or if you see anything, just to call and try to explain. So I'm from the DMV, but I'm a Celtics fan, so I'm all right on the basketball end. But when I'm not watching the Celtics, I cheer for the Wizards, and I hope that they do well. But the front office is just so bad from the owner on down, man. I mean, like, the one thing that I thought that they should have done was when my team fired Ime Udoka, that's where they should have went. These kids need a coach. This coach does not get across to these young kids, and you can tell by their body language on the court. So until they fix that, I don't even know the guy. I don't know where he came from, but you missed on Ime Udoka. I don't know how he got a job before, like somebody like Sam Cassell, but you need somebody that can get across to this group. I mean, it's not like they're terrible. They have talent, but somebody's got to guide these youngins.
I don't know about that. Well, first of all, Dontel, Ime Udoka got himself fired in Boston for very legitimate reasons, and I kind of was of the opinion that until we got a more adept apology tour from Ime Udoka, that I don't know that he belonged back in the NBA. And the Rockets just didn't care because Tillman Fertitta, the owner of the Rockets, his moral compass isn't exactly screwed on straight from what I understand. So Udoka here, I'm good on that. I think he's a great coach. Like, obviously, he's a tremendous coach. But the reason he was fired in Boston was a very serious personnel matter, and that was like him getting a job as quickly as it did was not actually a good thing for the NBA. On the larger point of like Brian Keefe, the Wizards coach, like he was very well lauded in player development circles for a long time, very, very successful as an assistant coach. He did a decent enough job with his run as an interim last year and did get through to a lot of players. Like he actually did a great job of connecting. That's why he was hired. And I don't know who else they interviewed. They've been able to keep that completely under wraps. But it does feel like, like one, is there talent here? Yes, but it's very limited. And the talent is extraordinarily young. Playing in the NBA is hard. Doing it at 19 and 20 years old, unless you're LeBron James, is damn near impossible. So I do think like they are kind of performing to expectations from a record standpoint. But I also do hear you when I say there doesn't see like whatever BK had last year doesn't seem to have carried through in the same way because the lack of competitiveness for large stretches of this season is concerning, and it's something that when eventually Will Dawkins and Michael Winger are ready to answer questions again will be amongst the top questions I and others will be wanting to ask them. I think that part is fair.
Craig, where did he come from?
Many places. He was an assistant here. Before that, he was in Brooklyn. He had a lot of success there. I think he was in Oklahoma City back in the day, like working in the early days of Durant and Harden and Westbrook and those guys. Like he's had a long history with Durant and like was a big part of KD's career.
Okay. I've never heard of him, so that's
yeah.
Why
But like, how many
NBA
NBA assistants have you heard of that aren't former players?
True.
Like Mark Daigneault has become one of the best coaches in the league, like out in Oklahoma City. Like you probably hadn't heard of him either.
Right. I'm just over this with the Wizards. I mean, like it's been year after year after year after year. Sooner or later, they're going to catch up with what the Commanders was.
Well, and that's a good place for us to end, Dontel. I appreciate the call, man. And again, like y'all can feel free to Google this stuff, but you can also call me. I'll tell you. On some of this, but like again, Mark Daigneault, in Philly, Anthony, why am I blank? Nick Nurse in Philly. Nobody had heard of Nick Nurse. People were so mad in Toronto when they fired Dwayne Casey and elevated Nick Nurse, and Nick Nurse brought them to a championship. Great coach. So like just because you haven't heard of him because he was an NBA assistant doesn't mean he's inherently a bad coach. Also doesn't mean that he's inherently a good coach. It's not defending Brian Keefe. Specifically, it's defending Brian Keefe and NBA assistants generically. But to the Commanders' point, and kind of combining a lot of what we talked about the last hour, I do think the pressure on Leonsis is only going to rise. And the Commanders' success, like if I am Winger and Dawkins, I would love to ask them this question off the record to get an honest response. I'm sure they are as like members of the community, and like I know Will's a huge football fan, even though he's a Bills fan. Very excited to see what the Commanders did this year. They're also probably so livid that they turned it around so fast because people will go, why can't you guys do the same? And the answer is because building a football roster is dramatically different than building a basketball roster. Like if you can get your Jaden Daniels, sure. But getting him in the NFL, there are way more Jaden Daniels in the NFL. And I'm not saying Jaden is like, oh, there's a million Jadens running around. But there's more of them than there are LeBron Jameses in the NBA. Like there are 8, 9 good quarterbacks in the league, and most years there's one at least in the draft who's like Pro Bowl caliber. Man, you might go 2-3 years without a generational player in an NBA draft. A true number one that can win you a championship. And in the NFL, let's say you don't get that guy. Let's say you don't get Jaden Daniels. There's going to be a generational something. And you can build up a roster and then put Jared Goff in, let's say, and go 15-2 like the Lions did. And I know obviously the Commanders beat them in the playoffs, but you can be the Eagles. Like Jalen Hurts isn't a top 10 quarterback. He's somewhere between like 10 and 12 probably, but he's not an elite quarterback in other situations. He's the perfect guy for Philly and the roster they've built around him. So that's the hard thing. In the NBA, there is none of that. If you have a bunch of good players in the NBA and are missing the centerpiece, you're terrible. You got to get the centerpiece. And this is, and with the Wizards trying to get that centerpiece, and we'll see what happens in the draft this year and next. If they can't do that successfully, then, man, not only is the Heat going to turn up on Winger and Dawkins, but with Dan Snyder no longer being around as a cover, Leonsis is not going to like the attention that he is getting. And that is just an unavoidable truth at this stage in current DC sports. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Kyle Kuzma is headed to the Bucks. It was just a week ago that Verun Shenoy told us he didn't think Kuzma was going to get traded at the deadline. But as he reported in the Post this morning, the last 3 to 4 days, something changed. He'll give us more detail when he joins us next. It's the Hoffman Show, hour number 2 here on the team at 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And we actually have another Wizards trade, which hopefully means that we will not have to cut time short with our guest that we're about to welcome in. Verun Shenoy from the Washington Post is about to join us. But first, as we bring in Verun, we can tell you that the Wizards have traded Jonas Valanciunas. He is headed to the Sacramento Kings for CD Sissoko and 2 second-round picks. Sissoko has been in Sacramento for all of 5 minutes. He was a part of the Spurs-Kings trade for De'Aaron Fox and Zach LaVine the other day, part of that 3-team deal, as you would guess. Sissoko's a 20-year-old Frenchman. Because of course he is. Because the Wizards have the market cornered on every 20-year-old Frenchman that exists on the entire planet that plays basketball. That's not actually true. It just feels like it. We're going to skip the Not My Beat fancy introduction and just bring in Verun. Verun, it was like a week ago that we were like, I don't know. We'll see if they wind up flipping Valanciunas and Kuzma. And you referenced this in the story you wrote in the Washington Post that really on the Kuzma side of things, it was the last 3-4 days that things started to heat up. What's kind of changed in the behind the scenes of the Wizards where they went from I don't know, we might wait till the offseason to trade some of these guys, to making both of these moves a day before the NBA's trade deadline?
2 things. One, I think they were worse than they expected to be, and when you're as bad as they are, there's not really too much of a reason to hold on to the veterans. You can't get too much worse than they have been this season. And then second, I think they really liked A.J. Johnson. They didn't get a first-round pick in this deal, but A.J. Johnson, in a lot of ways, is a first-round pick. He was selected in this past year's draft to pick ahead of Keyshawn George, and he's played sparingly. He's been in the G League for most of the year, but if you liked him and he is advertised as a toolsy guard who needs a lot of refinement, 32 games across the G League and NBA isn't any reason to downplay it if you liked him in the draft to begin with.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I saw it. It's like, man, I would have loved to get a first-round pick for Kuz, but they kind of do. This pick swap is a whole bunch of nothing to me, but Johnson is the big piece in the deal. And then the other guy they get is obviously Chris Middleton, who at 33 is coming off surgery last offseason on both of his ankles, really is just working his way back from that. But when you talk about keeping the room right and the value of veterans and keeping the right veterans around, how important was Middleton to them compared to Kuzma, who made it quite public a couple weeks ago that he was no longer interested in being a good vet and he would like to go get his, and now will get a chance to play for meaningful basketball in Milwaukee?
Yeah, I think Kuzma was a good vet off the court. From everything I've heard, it seems like he did do a lot to help the Wizards young players along in terms of mentorship. I think he was big, especially for Keyshawn George, because they play somewhat similar styles size-wise in particular. But on the court, he definitely was struggling with the development forward aspect of the organization. Middleton is, from all accounts, a really great locker room guy, and that's important, obviously, for a young team that's losing some veteran leadership now with Kuzma and Valanciunas, and we'll see about Malcolm Brogdon in the next day going out the door.
So you mentioned Valanciunas is going out. He's one that I'm actually kind of surprised in a way because he is a guy that was on a 3-year deal. We talked about this last week. Like, he's on a very good contract. And he has been a tremendous presence, especially for Alex Sarr. Why was this deal worth it? What do they like? I don't even know if you had a chance to report this. This trade happened 5 minutes ago. What do you think it is about the draft compensation, the 2 seconds, and then ultimately Sissoko that they like here?
Yeah, I'm still in the process of confirming the deal, but assuming it is accurate, I think it's mostly the draft compensation and the fact that you're getting Sissoko, who, again, very recent draft pick. I don't know much about him, but he was taken, and he's young, and he fits with their timeline, and he's kind of a dice roll. With Valanciunas, yes, you did have some time left on his contract. You didn't have to trade him now, but I'm not sure that his value was going to go up. I mean, he's 32 years old, and another year from now, he's obviously a little bit older, a little bit more wear and tear on a guy who's played a pretty rugged style. He's been durable over the last couple of years, and maybe you want to capitalize on that as we can.
Verun Shenoy from the Washington Post with us here on the Hoffman Show, their Wizards reporter. Nice enough to give us a few minutes during a very, very busy time, and busier even than expected with the second trade going down. When you think about kind of where this leaves them, though, Verun, like, they have to play the second half of the season, and we'll see if Brogdon's there, but like, they're going to have like 5 or 6 20-year-olds on this roster or younger. I mean, really, I guess if you put the line at like 22 and get Keyshawn George under there and all that, like how do they manage all of this youth and all of this player development at once as opposed to being able to say like, all right, hey, you're the vets they're going to follow. Like all of a sudden Keyshawn George is like in the top half of oldest dudes on the team.
Yeah, I think for the Wizards, in-game reps are paramount to them. Brian Keefe has a saying he likes to say often, you can't really do the job of playing the NBA until you've gone through the fire. You can't learn how to defend until you've had to do it against a top-tier player and made your mistakes and learned from your mistakes and improved that way. That's what this rest of the season is going to be. You look at their guard rotation right now. I mean, you've got Jordan Poole, you've got Malcolm Brogdon. We'll see what happens there. And then you've got Bub Carrington and A.J. Johnson. Those are two, I think Bub is 19, Johnson is 20. Johnson is, from all accounts, pretty athletic, pretty explosive, but he is like 160 or 170 pounds, and he's played mostly in G League this season. So we'll see what they look like for the rest of the season, but I think for the Wizards, all reps are good reps.
What is next here for Washington? You mentioned Brogdon. Like, what are kind of the rumors, whatever you're hearing now? And then is there a chance that Jordan Poole is also traded in the next 24 hours? And what would it take to pry Poole away from the Wizards?
I would be really surprised if Poole is traded. I think he's had a really great season. I think even despite that season, I don't think his contract is viewed particularly great around the league. I think Wizards also know that they do need someone to score the ball, and that's one of the hardest things for young players to do. Jordan Poole, at minimum, can score the ball consistently, and he allows them to insulate, especially when you trade Kuzma, another guy who can score the ball. You need Poole scoring to kind of offset that. I would be really surprised if they move him. The big guy to keep an eye on as the deadline grows near is Brogdon, veteran guy, can steady your offense, doesn't turn the ball over, can shoot, can defend. I think he's an ideal third guard for a lot of good teams. Question for him is obviously going to be health, but he's also an expiring contract, so the Wizards don't have too much of a reason to keep him. But as we saw with Tyus Jones last year, they might.
Yeah, Will tell us about the cultural deposits if they wind up keeping Malcolm Brogdon. And those are real. Yep. That's not me mocking Will. Like, that's just the term that they like to use. Last thing, on the way out for Verun Shenoy, Wizards reporter in the Washington Post. You can read his work covering these trades at WashingtonPost.com/sports. With specifically Kuzma, I guess Kuzma and Valanciunas moving out, who are the players that from a minutes and a role standpoint stand to benefit the most immediately? Like if folks tune in and watch the game against the Nets tonight with those two out of the lineup, obviously, like what will they notice about the rotation and who is getting not just more minutes, but the ball in their hands more or doing different things that clearly the Wizards want to create room for in making these deals?
I'll start with the minutes side of things. I think you'll see more minutes for Justin Champagnie just because he plays a similar position to Kuzma. You'll also see more minutes for Richaun Holmes. And because Alex Sarr is still out, you'll also see probably more minutes for Tristan Vucevic, the other center on the roster. Vucevic was a second-round pick in 2023. Stretch 5, been injured for a lot of his season, had occasional flashes. He's got to improve a lot defensively to be able to stay on the court. Champagnie's a really good offensive rebounder. For him, the question is his shooting. I think he shot pretty well this season, but that's been a question for his career. And then as far as who can get the ball more, I think you'll see young guys get the ball more. I think Bilal's going to get more. He's already gotten a lot of on-ball reps. I think you'll see more of that. I think you'll see a lot of on-ball reps for Keyshawn George as they try to see what he could do and what his skill set actually entails, as they still try to figure out the long-term futures of the guys they've drafted.
Verun Shenoy, you can read his work at WashingtonPost.com/sports. Verun, I know you got more reporting to do, and we look forward to whatever you scrounge up on the Jonas trade. Appreciate your time. I know you're really busy, dude. Have a good one, and enjoy the game tonight.
Same to you. Thank you so much.
All right, Verun Shenoy, everybody. Dave Johnson's going to join us coming up at 6 o'clock. We'll see if these deals have been made official, and Dave can talk about them then. And we'll also, Lenell is roaming around, probably just like muttering, talking to somebody, warming himself back up again. Lenell's going to come back in here and talk Wizards at 5:30, but we got time for your calls more next. And again, the breaking news, we got another Wizards trade. Kuzma and now Valanciunas on the way out. We're talking about it with you at 301-230-0980 next. 301-230-0980 is our phone number where you can call in and get your 2 cents in on the Wizards' wheelings and dealings at the NBA's trade deadline. Technically, tomorrow is the deadline, but the Wiz have made 2 moves today, reported by multiple outlets. Kyle Kuzma to Milwaukee with Patrick Baldwin and a second-round pick for Chris Middleton, A.J. Johnson, and a 2028 pick swap. And then just moments ago, the Wizards acquire 20-year-old Frenchman Sidi Sissoko in return for Jonas Valanciunas. Sissoko coming from Sacramento with 2 first-round picks. They acquired Sissoko just the other day in the trade involving the San Antonio Spurs, where they traded away De'Aaron Fox. So Sissoko is 3rd team in like 4 days. But again, 20 years old, 6'8", 200 pounds, and he speaks the language that is native to the Washington Wizards. That language is French. Oui, oui. Apropos of none of that, we'll take your calls again in a second, 301-230-0980. But I do want to remind you that we have our Slam Dunk in Vegas contest here on the Team 980. You can listen for your chance to win a flyaway trip to Vegas with 3 friends and $20,000 in spending money for the first 2 rounds of the college basketball tournament. You'll stay at the Circa Resort and Casino, Las Vegas's premier sports viewing destination, and visit the biggest March Hoops party at Stadium Swim. Winning is easy. Just download the free Odyssey app, log in, and listen to the Team 980 for a chance to win the experience of a lifetime. Listen each day for an hour to earn your daily entry. This is a national contest. More details available at odyssey.com/slamdunk. All right, let's get back to the calls on the Wizards trades. 301-230-0980. Marcus, you are on the Hoffman Show.
What's up, Hoffman? How are you doing today?
Good, bro. How are you?
Good, man. It feels weird not talking about the Commanders, but it is what it is.
Yeah, give us like 2 days. We'll be back to Myles Garrett talk, and it's just they traded probably their best player the last 3 years today. So we're gonna talk a little Zardos.
It's cool, man. So how do I feel about the trades? Pretty much. I mean, we're like 6-41 or something like that. So
Marcus, don't you be disrespectful. They're on a 2-game winning streak, and they have 7 wins. What is wrong with you?
Well, I'll say this. I feel less hurt about Kuzma going because on this 2-game winning streak, as well as this whole season, it hasn't really done too much. We bought him when we first acquired him. I was thinking he was more like first option, maybe second option, but I mean, this season he's averaging like 15, 5 and 2, I think. So he's not really contributing to much. I would have liked Valanciunas to stay. I mean, I get why he's going, older guy, but he was a dominant. I feel like he was somewhat of a dominant presence at center. With that being said, though, I do like the Chris Middleton pickup for the sole purpose of the development of Alex Sarr. I think they may not have the same game, but I feel like size-wise, Chris Middleton can do some things that Alex Sarr can do as well, or that he can teach him. Try to develop him a little bit more, and then I think if we go, if we do any more moves in the trade, I feel like we need to bring people in that can develop these younger guys. So particularly I like the Chris Middleton pickup for the development of Alex Sarr. But at this point, again, the 2-game winning streak aside, before that we're 4 and such and such. So, anybody can go, but I do like the pickup of Chris Middleton, and I hope that we can add some more pieces that I guess make sense to the development. We have a young team, so I think going out and getting not a heavy hitter, but a heavy hitter that doesn't make much sense to the future would be kind of crazy to me at this point. So I think specifically the Chris Middleton one, that makes the most sense to me right now, and hopefully we keep moving in that direction.
Yeah.
To develop our core.
For sure. All right. Thanks for the call, Marcus, and we'll get back to some Commanders, I promise, here relatively soon. I don't really know what Marcus meant about the size thing with Middleton and Sarr. Maybe he meant like Keyshawn George, or maybe even Bub. Like, those are two big guards. A.J. Johnson. Like, all these guys they brought in, like, Chris Middleton can teach them a lot. Alex Sarr is power forward center. Middleton's obviously a guy who can be a playmaker and a ball handler. And I think that he is a guy that you can give possessions to. And you can say, hey, kids, watch how Chris does this. This is how it's done. It's just, like, who's he going to be out there with? I mean, Anthony, the youth of this roster is actually bat bleep insane. Like, if we look at, and again, they're different sports, but like the Commanders were like, we're going to try to make sure we have the Bobby Wagners and we have the Zach Ertzes and whatever around. And the Commanders were on a different timeline than the Wizards for a bunch of reasons. But the Wizards at this point have legitimately like 6 guys, I think, that are going to be under 22. Like, this is nuts. Sarr is, I'm just going to go on, here we go, birth dates. First of all, the oldest guy on the team was Jonas, and he was born in 1992, and that makes me feel terrible inside, because I was born in 1990. I'd be the oldest guy on the Wizards, everybody, by like 2+ years. But now Jonas is gone. Anthony Gill, he was born in 92. He's going to be around. Brogdon's born in December of 92, and he might get traded. But now you've got Bub, who is 19. There's one. Sarr is 19. There's 2. Bilal is 20. George is 21. Vukcevic is 21. He turns 22 in March. So you got those 4. Then those were the incumbents. Now they haven't updated the roster on Pro Basketball Reference yet, so I got to do some searching here. A.J. Johnson comes in. He was born / how old is he? Let's just do this the easy way. Off of Pro Basketball Reference we go. A.J. Johnson. A.J. Johnson is 20 years old. And then Sissoko is also 20 years old. I was right. Anthony. They got 6 dudes who are 21 or younger. 6. They can play an entire lineup of people who can't drink legally in the United States. 5 of them are Europeans, so they can drink over there.
It's crazy.
Sorry, 4 of them. Sorry, Bub.
It's crazy, and I mean, we always want to compare this young Wizards team to that of the Thunder, but the thing is, 2 or 3 of these young players, they're going to be some of the focal pieces for the turnaround here. Like, and I think that's what they're just taking a chance on, trying to like weigh the odds. Like,
they are just playing the lottery.
Are going to hit.
Yeah, they are just purely playing the lottery.
Yeah,
and again, that's fine right now.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to know what this actually, we make the OKC comparisons all the time because Michael and Will came from that OKC tree. This is not what OKC did, because OKC had Paul George and was able to flip Paul George and Chris Paul. They had those two and were able to flip them into assets. Oh yeah, Oladipo. They flipped those guys into mega assets, and they flipped it into Shea. Specifically, PG got flipped into Shea. Wizards don't have that ability. You know who else didn't have that ability? The OG process Philadelphia 76ers. And what Philly did was just eat manure for like 3 years and take a ton of lottery swings, right? And some of them looked really good early. Michael Carter Williams, my boy from Syracuse back in the day, he won Rookie of the Year. And then he did not have a good time after that. Obviously, they missed massively on Markelle Fultz. Jahlil Okafor, they missed on that one. Like, they missed a ton of picks. But they also got Joel Embiid right. And they also flipped some other things and were able to turn some pieces into others. and got competitive. And I know they haven't won a championship, but until this year, they were a 50-win team for like 5 or 6 straight years. Again, something the Wizards haven't done since 1979. And you want to have a guy in Joel Embiid who's an MVP caliber player. Like, that's the goal here. The Washington Wizards haven't even entered that phase yet. But like, the just eat it and take a million swings so that you can try to get 2 or 3 guys. And even if you only have a 50% hit rate, what if half of these kids, and I'm going to call them kids, 21 and under, what if 3 of them hit at like a all-star or borderline all-star level? Well, now you got 3 all-star. You're in great shape. And if one of them, and by the way, this is not even counting the hopeful Cooper Flagg or Ace Bailey or whoever they get in this year, if one of them elevates to All-NBA, well, now you're really cooking. And so that's why you do this. Like, they are favoring, actually, what they're really banking on here, as much as their ability to draft and the lottery and all that kind of stuff, they're banking on their player development. They're saying, CD Sissoko, you have been a non-factor in the NBA in 2 years. You haven't really played a whole lot. You were in San Antonio, didn't do much. We think we can take you and turn you into a real NBA player. AJ Johnson, you have been mostly a G League player through your rookie year. We liked you coming out. We think there's more in there. We're going to get it out of you. And if they're right, and by the way, there's been some good early returns. Look at Bilal this year, and look at some of the ways that Sarr has developed in the season. Like, if they're right, then this could all work out. If they are wrong, they're going to look so incredibly dumb. But this, I think, is the risk you have to take. And again, I'm not blindly defending this, and I hate that this is the path that they have to take. But unfortunately, I do believe this is the path they have to take. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Lenell is going to come in here and talk calmly about the Wizards. Lenell is going to come in next. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Greg Hoffman, Lenell Willingham is back in the chair that he sits at twice a week to scream at Chris Russell.
It's well put. It's well put. Yeah, I do yell with Chris a lot.
You guys, I don't know what I walked into today, but it took an hour to get that energy out of here.
Well, an hour? The whole first hour of the show?
It was just like, I just felt the room slowly like returning to a peaceful place.
Yeah. What's up, though, Craig? How are you, buddy?
Oh, I'm just, processing these Wizards trades like everyone else. I did my own yelling today. I went on a full rant earlier today.
I literally heard you through the glass.
Yeah, I was like, can we please stop defending the Tommy Shepards and the Ron Riveras of the world? This doesn't make any sense.
It's almost like they have 9 lives, like they're cats. Like like people here appreciate them more now that they're gone.
It's like, it's worse than that. It's those guys suck. Why won't you play the players that got them fired? Why won't you? You can't possibly include that guy in a trade for Myles Garrett.
Come on.
Whatever.
Anyway.
The Wizards have traded Kyle Kuzma to the Milwaukee Bucks. They get Chris Middleton in return along with A.J. Johnson, who was a first-round pick last year. Similar type of deal for Jonas Valanciunas. Valanciunas headed to Sacramento for 2 seconds. And C.D. Sissoko, who is a 20-year-old Frenchman. Yep. Lenell, the Washington Wizards now have 6 players who are 21 years or younger. 6.
Yeah.
What do you make of this? Where are you, King Wizards fan over there? I mean, for a guy who's the youngest in charge movement, do you feel threatened by the Wizards youth movement? That's really the question. You're not the youngest anymore, man. If you were on the Wizards,
I'd be old.
You'd be old as hell.
I'd be considered old.
I'm basically dead.
Yeah, pretty much. So I'm like stuck between a rock and a hard place because I understand what you have to do to get where you want to go, where we want to go as a fan base and like media members that cover this. You want the Wizards to be a championship contender at some point. This is starting to turn into title town. Commanders are going to be championship contenders for years to come. The Capitals are a championship contender this year. The Nats, if they ever choose to spend money, will be a championship contender. And then there's the Wizards. So I like the youth movement. I think it's good if they are going to be developing good habits while playing. And I think what you've seen under the guidance of Brian Keefe, going back to last year, I might add, is it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of accountability that exists within the Wizards locker room. And when I say locker room, I mean on the floor, coaches included. Like, how uncompetitive they've been is like not a part of the rebuild to me. Like, you're not supposed to go out and get drubbed by 35. You're not supposed to be down 25 at the end of a quarter to Toronto. And they're
on a regular basis.
On a regular basis, right? It happens every now and then, right?
It happens all the time in the NBA, but it doesn't happen to the same team
every day,
14 times in 25 games. Which is those numbers are made up, but they're not that made up.
So that's my problem is they're not competitive enough, and I point at Brian Keefe because like you have the ability to send messages, which he doesn't. It feels like now everybody that you talk to like around the Cap One like says that he is a yeller behind the scenes and that he actually does get in people's behind. It doesn't seem like it. Doesn't seem like
it. The thing is though, like,
and I'm not saying they just need some yeller aggressive coach. Like that's
right.
not it.
It's like, are you reaching the players? Is
I
the
don't
question.
Think he is.
That's and that is the fundamental question. And this is something that I have been chewing on as I have like emerged from my Commanders hole and started to watch a little bit more over the last couple of weeks. And just like because in these games, like it's not like they're just missing shots.
No, and that's what they want you to believe. That's
it's more than that. There is a lack of competitive fire. At the same time, I think they are learning how to compete in the NBA with a bunch of guys that are stupidly young. Like being 19 in the NBA is hard.
Yes.
Like we think of 19-year-olds in the NBA as LeBron James, as Kevin Durant, as Wemby, who can come in and compete because typically those are the only 19-year-olds that get on the floor. Most 19-year-olds are on the bench, not doing a whole lot.
Yeah.
Or
AJ Johnson.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Right.
And they're like the very top picks and they're for bad teams, but you don't have 4 of them playing meaningful minutes on a regular basis. There's only so much damage that they can do as 19-year-olds. Yeah. And because the Wizards have gone so heavily into that, and by the way, the guy that's leading their possessions, I love JP. I love Jordan Poole. I enjoy like hell talking to him. I think he cares and that's great. But he's a loose cannon as a basketball player. He does some funny stuff sometimes.
Yes.
Some stuff where you're like, okay, I need 10% more Malcolm Brogdon than you, Jordan Poole.
Yeah.
And I think that reality, like, makes the basketball team fairly loose. And it's why, by the way, they play completely differently when Brogdon is back. Because
sure.
Brogdon is like, hi, I'm an adult. We're going to be organized today. Everyone clean up your room and then let's go to practice.
It's like the dad of the team.
Right.
Which is cool. And I'm glad that you brought up JP because I remember last year as he was getting crushed, pat on our backs. Me and you felt like we were the guys that were defending him a little bit and trying to get the general public to understand, hey, he just got punched in the face in front of the entire world, and he's now been shipped across the country. There's a
right.
kid
And
that grew
also
up
his
in
numbers are
Wisconsin.
way better than you think they are.
Yeah, he's playing his tail off this year. Like he's honestly your best trade chip right now. But because of his age, Craig, I'm at the point where I'm looking at Jordan Poole, and me and Danny actually just went back and forth about this. Age, contract, production. I'm almost looking at him like, can he be a part of your young future moving forward, or is he nothing but a trade chip? I just think you need somebody to get Jordan to rein it in. I don't know if Malcolm Brogdon and him have the relationship to where he could talk to JP, because right now JP's the vet. And the young Bub, Keyshawn, Bilal, him and Bilal call each other twins. They're like very good friends.
Yeah.
He has done a really good job taking the young guys under his wing. And depending on what you think about Jordan Poole, that could be a good thing or a bad thing. I think it's been a lot more for the positive. Because this is a champion, right? And I know it seems like it was a long time ago, and some people, tend to forget how impactful he was to their championship. He is a good guy to have around. I just wonder, does he have the right temperament to be in this position? And what I mean by that is the best player on a rebuilding team, when you're trying to encourage other guys to take the game seriously and play hard, there's some things that he does that I don't really care for, but it's kind of the position that you're in. With playing so many young guys, Craig, I mentioned it at the start of our conversation, you don't want to create bad habits.
Right.
And I think that's where we've kind of, like, no offense to Keyshawn George. I think he's playing well when he gets his opportunities. I love them letting him handle the ball at point the other night against Charlotte. I shouldn't see 19-year-old Keyshawn George arguing with a damn official and not getting back on defense. That's something if you're Brian Keefe, come here, sit next to me. And it's easy. You sit down, you talk to him, boom, it's over. Like, no one gets benched. That's why I say it's like there's no consequences on this team.
Well, and that's the thing is minutes is definitely always the number one motivator for players,
sure.
outside of money, right? And the money's not
sure.
changing for these young guys. Like, they're on the first year of the rookie deals, whatever. So the idea of, like, benching a guy, but also then you lose out on reps. And for them, like, reps are everything. So there is a balance. And also you can only play the bench card so many times before you actually, like, just, like, have to sit a dude down for an entire game. And, like, is the front office on board with that? What does that do to the relationship? Like, these things are I have been around long enough. I'm going to old man the hell out of this. I have been around long enough to understand how complicated these things are. And I do not envy Brian Keefe. Like, he has an incredibly tough job.
Sure.
I also do not know that the idea that there isn't someone out there that could be doing it better is becoming harder and harder to swallow when they've got 7 wins and it is February 5th. Like, it's just hard. And this is where, like, okay, Valanciunas was a great vet for them, especially for Alex Sarr. This is where Chris Middleton, like, the next 20 whatever hours, or really the next, like, 2 weeks become fascinating. Does he play here, or do they buy him out? Because
that'd be a tough pill to swallow.
I would want to. Well, I mean, if he wants,
He's got the relationship with Malcolm too, is what I also was looking at. Like, maybe he doesn't want to get bought out. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, but Malcolm could also get traded in the next 20 minutes. Like, who knows?
Very true.
But I think Middleton is the kind of guy that has because, like, Kuz is also a one of a kind character, right? Like, JP is unique in his personality and, like, big fan of it. Kyle, like, there's a ton of great stuff about Kyle Kuzma and, like, very involved in the community. Like, there's a lot of great stuff about Kyle, but, like, he's a very unique personality with the fashion and all these different things. And again, I'm not saying those things are negative. It's just, like, he doesn't have a workman's, like, attitude in terms of how he carries himself.
Yes, on
right?
a day-to-day.
He's got a lot of other stuff because he's gotten to a point in his career where he's earned it. That is not to say when he's at work, he's not very workmanlike, and that I'm overstating this to say I am not hating on Kyle Kuzma getting to live his full life as Kyle Kuzma, NBA star. Good for him. Yes. If I was Kyle Kuzma, I would not be wearing the stuff he can because I cannot pull it off. But, like, I would have my ways that I would want to make sure that I'm maximizing my time as an NBA star. But I do think Chris Middleton and the way he goes about his business is a great example to have in the building. Yeah. And I think that a 33-year-old, key part of a championship team, older guy, like true adult level. Chris Middleton is the oldest player on the team the second he walks in.
Yes.
And there is a different status. And it's not like he's going to come over and be like, this is my team. I'm taking over. I'm the leader now. He's just going to go about his work. And they're going to see a guy that made it from the G League to be a 3-time All-Star, win a championship, have a 12-year and counting NBA career. And I think that kind of example, especially considering how many wings they've got that are young, guys like, Bub's a point, but he's kind of a point wing type of player, a guy who's going to handle the ball a ton. And Middleton is a guy that can take possessions off of Poole's plate, by the way. Keyshawn, like, these guys, now Sissoko coming in, A.J. Johnson coming in, these guys can see the way Chris Middleton not only handles his business and handles just playing NBA basketball, but goes about all of it. And I think that different type of perspective, someone who's a little bit more nose to the grindstone in terms of their personality, is probably a good thing to have around.
And I agree with everything that you said. And, like, that's the one area where I'll point to Mike Winger, Will Dawkins, and Travis Schlenk and say, hey, okay, you've been very vocal in telling us we're going to bottom out and you're going to go young. When you drastically go young the way the Wizards have, you have to have the right veterans around, or it's going to be a clown show in your locker room. It's going to be a clown show product on the floor, and I think we're starting to see kind of what that really was. Like, there's no offense to Kuz or Jordan Poole, but, like, they're not – like Taj Gibson being around last year. Like, that's the type of vet you want. And it's hard in sports when your leaders aren't contributing, too. That's the other thing. Like, Anthony Gill is the consummate professional.
Yeah.
Goes about his work all the time, but how valuable
and
is
he's
what
the guy
AG
that's going to bring hey, I'm going to the gym. You're coming with me.
You know what I'm saying? But
yeah.
how valuable is what AG says when AG don't get minutes?
Right.
That's
like,
the other
all due respect to Anthony Gill. You're Anthony
So-
Gill. And Anthony Gill would probably laugh at that. He'd be like, nope, I'm Anthony Gill. And he has done a tremendous job of
Yes, that's why they
carving
keep
out
him
a
around,
career
like-
for him. 100%. And multiple regimes have now kept him around.
Exactly.
Multiple coaching staffs have been like, I want that dude as a connector on my team.
Yeah.
But it's different than, oh, you're a like with the Commander. And it's so interesting watching these rebuilds. And I was joking about this earlier, Lenell. Like, if I am Winger and Dawkins, I'm like, good job, Commanders. Like,
Can Bob come over?
well, as like citizens of Bob Myers, that'd be funny.
Yeah.
But like as citizens of the district, good job, our brethren of your success. But screw you, bleepity bleepers, for getting everyone thinking you can do this in a year.
No,
but I think one of the things that was so magical in the Commanders' run, obviously, is the role of Bobby and Zach. And like, it is different when your vets are gold jacket type of guys who can still get it done. Maybe not at the level they used to. And we're going to see what Chris Middleton still has in the tank here. Like, he's been battling back from those ankle surgeries in the offseason, and hopefully he is starting to turn the corner a little bit. He's played a little bit more in the last couple of weeks. So hopefully he's starting to turn the corner a little bit and can just be a really good, like, can he average 17 a game for the rest of the year, right? And that is different than Anthony Gill. And not to say that Anthony Gill doesn't have a role, but like if Anthony Gill's telling you something and then you go see Chris Middleton do it and you're like,
it's different.
100% it hits different. 100% it hits different.
I think that's just the spot that Washington's in right now. For the next couple of weeks, I think it's going to be interesting to see, one, this is where Brian Keefe's job is kind of difficult because you got to now learn A.J. Johnson. You got to now learn the new Frenchman they brought in.
CD Sissoko.
CD Sissoko. Say that 10 times fast. You got to learn
Don't
about
challenge me
him,
with a good time.
On the floor and off the floor. And he's got to find what lineups he can throw out there that will keep them competitive while also still fostering that environment of, like, growing young talent.
For
I
sure.
think that's what's going to be really hard about this. Alex Sarr can't come back quick enough. All of the minutes are his at the 5 spot, until unless he can't
Rashawn
breathe.
Holmes is going to play a whole bunch of minutes. 14,
16. I would put a lot on Alex's plate with that. I think you use this time. Now, he's coming off an injury, so you got to be delicate with it, I guess. But, like, dude, Alex should be playing 35 minutes a night. Like, this is it's go time now.
He is out tonight, by the way, against the Nets. And we'll get even more updates on kind of what's going on and what the plan is for tonight with Dave coming up in 12 minutes. But in the final few minutes with you here, Lenell's also got overtime tonight, so you can listen to him starting at 6:30 over on 106.7 The Fan. He was also yelling at Chris from 1 to 4, so if you want to check out the Chris Russell Show podcast, and you want more Lenell, more youngest in charge, you got it in all the places on demand and live coming up at 6:30. What do you make? This is something I've been chewing on, so we get to spend a few minutes here thinking about this. What do you make of the strategy with these trades? Because with Johnson and Sissoko, they get young players. Sissoko in his second year, Johnson in his first. Basically, he's a quasi first-round pick.
And that's how
as opposed to getting an actual first-round pick. Like, the more I think about it, the more I like it, where I'm like, hey, yes, you could get the thing that is unknown in the future, or you can get a little bit more known with the same amount of youth. And if you like the player, you like the player. And unless you've seen something in the limited time they've been in the league that makes you change your evaluation, if you like these guys coming out, like, I'm kind of like, go get them. And if teams are willing to give up those guys when they're unwilling to give up actual draft picks, that's fine with me.
Yeah, I agree, and I like the philosophy. So when you look at it, I think it's, 5 first-round picks or 6 7 maybe, that they brought in the last 2 years.
They're up to, I was texting with someone this morning, and I think he said that they were up to like 27 total draft picks between now and 2031.
How many of them are the first-round picks is what gets interesting. The pick swaps that they have are valuable because Giannis has a player option after next season, so the Bucks may be.
Well, if Giannis opts out, then this whole thing changes.
Right.
With that said, this pick swap is a kind of it's like actually not that complicated. It's hard to say out loud on the radio. Yeah. Basically, is the Blazers, the Wizards, and the Bucks. Those are the 3 picks. They will pick in the order of Bucks. They will swap the picks around so that the order is the most favorable to Portland, the second most favorable to Washington. So if, let's say, Giannis opts out and the Bucks are terrible, that doesn't really help Washington as much because that pick is going to Portland.
Oh wow, I did not.
So they get the second. They get the second of most favorable pick.
Now that kind of changes the way I look at it a little bit. But like I think from a fan's perspective, and this is how I was looking at it too. When you think rebuild, you think tear down, you think about Oklahoma City getting back all the picks they got, and we're kind of following that model because of Will. So I'm just looking at it from like, where are the first-round picks at? And it's why I get frustrated with them sitting on their hands last year and letting Kuzma kind of dictate things. It seemed like you had a first-round pick.
I'm glad you brought that up. That didn't happen.
So they didn't have a first-round pick on the table for him?
Kuzma did not deny a trade to Dallas.
Not that
I have a reliable source who told me straight up that is not what happened. The people in the Wizards front office were like, sure, it's a great story about how Kyle wanted to be here. We're not going to go out and correct it. That did not happen.
Either or, it ended up with you not getting back what.
I don't know that deal was.
Got a first-round pick for Kyle. Think about this. You got more for Denny and Gaff. Like, if I would have told you that when Kuz first signed the extension that summer, you would have been like, ain't no way in hell that's happening. So that's how I'm looking at it. It's like,
but that's the thing is like, do you count this pick swap as a first, and do you count AJ Johnson as a first? And if you do, then they got 2 firsts for Kuz. For whatever it's worth, they have obviously their own this year because it's not like they still owe the Knicks a pick, but it's not going to wind up conveying this year.
It feels like that pick has been floating around in the ether for years.
Yeah, it's been like top whatever protected, and the Wizards are like, look how bad we can be. 2026, they have swap rights with Phoenix. So like Phoenix is the key here. For Washington, right?
Yes, they need to bottom out.
Do the Wizards or do the Suns wind up just blowing it all up again, and are they bad? So they have 2026 pick swap rights with Phoenix. They have a bunch of seconds in 25 and 26. 27, they have their own first and 3, 4, 5 extra seconds. 2028, they now have this 2 giant pick swaps. They have a Phoenix, Brooklyn, Philly pick swap situation, and they have this one for Milwaukee and Portland that is today.
Those are interesting teams to have a pick swap with because, like, I can see the Sixers bottoming out sooner rather than later.
Yeah, if Embiid, like, his knees just don't get better and he retires in 2 years, by 2028. But then it's like, when are they going to be good? And, like, this is the thing about this. So let me just quickly go through this and then answer my own question. 2029, they have their own. They also have a Boston, Milwaukee, or Portland. 2030, they have a Golden State top 20 protected and Phoenix pick swap. 31. That's the last one. So they have their own, but they have multiple seconds in there. So it's a lot of seconds. But here's the thing. With all those picks, nothing says they can't package them together and get up faster somewhere else.
For sure.
And so if you want to take 2 or 3 first-rounders later of a Phoenix, a Brooklyn, a Milwaukee, a Portland, and like say, hey, Team X, who maybe wants something now, we'll give you a couple first-rounders plus this thing you want now, and we'll take on, or we want this better first-rounder more immediately, or we take your young player. So I think they have the war chest. And this isn't just like, hey, they'll be good in 2034 when these draft picks finally hit. We're not going to be waiting that long. This is assets to move in the future. Yeah. And when they're good, and this is the other part of it, to wrap up the totality of the conversation here, let's say in 2029 they are good, and now they're sitting like top of the Eastern Conference, sick, but they need one more piece. Now you got an extra first to trade. Yeah. Now you've got ammo to move when you're good. And that's the hope. Of course, they kind of need to win the draft lottery the next 2 years for that to be the case.
And are the basketball gods going to reward you going out and losing by 40 on a nightly basis? Probably.
They rewarded the Sixers back in the day with Joel Embiid.
Pistons, though. See, that's my thing. Someone's got to turn into a star. And right now, I think that's where the question is. Of the young guys, who is most likely to end up being a star? And I think Alex Sarr is the clear answer.
The draft pick that they're going to take this year.
Yeah. Well,
that's the thing. They're not done building yet.
The 5th pick. And then who?
Well, then you're screwed. Well, and that's the thing. They're playing the lottery. It's even though they're maximizing their odds, it's still a lottery.
Better than chasing 30 wins.
That is also very true. Lenell, tonight, overtime, 6:30 over on 106.7 The Fan. Indeed. Dave Johnson with us next. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube, too, at the Team 980. We're going to get right to it with Dave Johnson. It's a Wizards game day. They are in Brooklyn tonight, taking on the Nets, although that is not the top story in Wizards land, as we have had a pair of trades this afternoon. Kyle Kuzma headed to Milwaukee. Jonas Valanciunas headed to Sacramento. In return, a couple of interesting young players, and then some draft capital as well. A.J. Johnson from Milwaukee, C.D. Sissoko from Sacramento. Dave, I'm sure it's been an interesting day for you. Like, what's your day been like, kind of just following all of this and preparing for the game tonight?
Well, you know what's interesting, and actually, it's not been as interesting as you would think. Obviously, we saw the reports about the Kuzma trade, which is reported by ESPN and others, and he was not at shoot-around this morning, so we knew something was up with that. But in terms of, as you just referenced, Jonas Valanciunas, I just got here to the arena about an hour ago, and so that's really news to me. So neither trade yet has been announced by the team. So as close as I am to the situation, I'm not that close to the situation because nobody's really talking about it yet. The coaches aren't talking about it, the general manager, et cetera, because it's not official until it goes through NBA approval. But having said that, neither Kyle Kuzma or Jonas Valanciunas will play tonight for the Wizards with the team. So obviously, what's being reported is happening.
Dave, I'm just pure curiosity. Like, remember a couple years ago when Greg Popovich put DNP old on the injury report, and then Tim Duncan was kind of mad at him? Like, could you put DNP traded if the trade has not gone through yet? Like, what's the actual listing for Kuzma and Valanciunas tonight, as they are not obviously playing for the Wizards, because although it is not official, they are no longer Washington Wizards?
Well, yeah, because that's a good question, because technically they are still Wizards because the trade has not gone through, but I think it's just DNP, not with team. I think that's the official thing now that I think about that goes on the score sheet. It's always when you play on trade deadline day, on the eve of trade deadline day, it's always an interesting time because it's not to say that these reports are obviously there's something to them. The reason it's not announced, it's not anybody's trying to be coy or dramatic about it. It's they have to pass physicals. It's not done until the deal is done. And having said that, I can't think of the last time a trade that was reported didn't go through. But I know it's happened before because something with a medical, physical.
Well, ironically, it was the Malcolm Brogdon, Kristaps Porzingis trade for the Wizards a couple years ago. Now that was after the season, like right before the league year was going to start. So it wasn't like you're dealing with tonight, where it's like, oh, hey, are they at the arena? But I do that did go down a couple years ago, involving, of all people, the Washington Wizards.
Well, no, you're right. And you talk about our good friend Scott Brooks, one-time head coach of the Washington Wizards. He was traded at halftime of a game. So for players, it's, I've been doing this a long time, and obviously I've experienced a lot. I remember being in the hotel room in New Orleans, I think when the JaVale McGee trade was going on. And so all day long, you're kind of, the players anyway, are on pins and needles, wondering, is something going to happen? Whereas, the situation I mentioned, the Kyle Kuzma reports came out fairly early today. As I mentioned, he wasn't at shoot-around, so we knew something was going on with Kyle Kuzma. But the Jonas Valanciunas, again, that just showed up on, like everything else, as I'm scrolling, because we all do it. We all scroll on our phones while I'm on the bus, and I see it. I'm like, well, there's another change that we're going to have to deal with tonight.
Dave Johnson joining us from Brooklyn here ahead of the Wizards game tonight. This game's a 7:30 tip, so 7:15 pregame here on the Team 980 for Dave and Glenn. And somehow, Dave, all that math you've done on how young the Wizards are, you're going to have to redo it, and presuming these trades go through as reported, they've somehow gotten younger How does Brian Keefe continue to manage a roster that now, again, presuming A.J. Johnson is coming and C.D. Sissoko is coming, will have 6 players 21 years and under?
Well, that's that's really an incredible number. Once upon a time, you couldn't be 21 or younger and be in the NBA. So I think it shows where we are as a team, and in terms of what this year is all about. And quite frankly, these deals that are being reported, we knew there was not going to be a Luka Doncic deal. That's not where we are. The stage of development it is going to be about young players and assets, and that's what these players are about. And it's also not about taking on big contracts or that type of thing. So what's exciting, as I've told you, it's not cliche to say it's a lot of fun to be around these young players because they are so stoked every night to be in the NBA, to try to say, hey, I want to make my dream come true. And so that's the answer when people say to me, oh, tough season, 7 wins or 8 wins now. It's not as tough as you think. As I said to you before, I've been on teams with more wins that were not as enjoyable to be around. So I don't think that's going to be a problem. In fact, I know it's not going to be a problem because Bilal Coulibaly, he's in his second year. He's coming off almost at a career high again the other night. But the way he's getting his 26 points, when he'd have to get hot beyond the arc. And he was, I think he made 4 3-pointers, but there's so much more to his game, and that's fun to see. So it's just exciting to see that a lot of these young guys that one day are not going to be young guys, and they're an NBA star developing in this bunch. So it's a different situation versus dealing with, for lack of a better term, jaded veterans. I don't mean that as negative as it might sound, but this is a group that just is about the joy of basketball.
And then last thing for you, Dave, assuming that you've talked to BK at this point, he obviously will have a shortened rotation tonight. This is another thing that just happens around trades is you trade guys, and the new guys aren't ready yet, so you got to figure out how to place certain minutes. You also have some injuries. Sarr not back yet tonight. So who should we expect to see more of, and maybe in some different roles tonight that there's going to just be different opportunities available compared to what was the last time they stepped on the court?
Well, I think the Bees will probably win by 20 points tonight because I've seen this over and over in the NBA where you face a team that's down to 8 players or whatever, and they come out and they go nuts. So, in all seriousness, though, look, that's going to be more playing time. Rashawn Holmes is coming off a 10-rebound performance. And there's not going to be Jonas tonight, not going to be Kyle Kuzma. He's going to have to be dominant on the boards. Corey Kispert is going to have to do what he did the other night. Bilal Coulibaly, the same thing. So the good thing for the Wizards is they have Malcolm Brogdon back. And believe me, it's not a coincidence that we're going for 3 wins in a row. And I never thought I'd be saying that in this season, going for 3 wins in a row and on the road. And I don't care who you're playing and what their situation is. It's not easy in the NBA to do that. But I don't think it's not a coincidence that it's also with Malcolm Brogdon in the lineup. He is just such a steadying influence on this team. So it's fortunate. He's going to have to continue to be, a field general tonight, a court general tonight, as I mix my sports metaphors for the Wizards. And by the way, I don't know if you hear the music in the background, but it is hard to form sentences and make sense.
This is one of our louder ones, Dave. I'm not gonna lie. The music is often you'll be like, "Oh, it's so loud." I'm like, "Dave, we can't hear it." This one we could hear.
So I feel like I'm in the club, and not that I would know anything about being in the club. and I'm trying to call a taxi. Hey, Craig, can you pick me up? I'll meet you at the corner of Connecticut and Wisconsin. So so I hope whatever I said made sense. If not, I'm putting a disclaimer on it that this is the loudest music while I'm trying to conduct a radio interview in the history of my 40-year broadcast career. So mark that down.
We will mark that down. We've had a couple of those, the previous contenders on this show, Dave, and today we set a new record, which really is what today is all about. Dave, have a great call tonight, and we'll look forward to talking to you again later in the week as the Wizards resume play post-trade deadline.
Yeah, in fact, the next live shot I'll do from a conference room, library-like, will be quiet, and we can make good points.
Outstanding. I look forward to it. See you, Dave. All right, that's Dave Johnson with us here on the Hoffman Show, live from a subwoofer, live from a speaker, live from a very loud Barclays Center there in Brooklyn. All right, when we get back, Anthony and I have some business to take care of, Competition Wednesday style. So we've talked our Wizards for the day, and we're going to do some Super Bowl prop bets and also reveal who won the season series and perhaps settle on a season-long punishment for that. So we got business to discuss. Anthony is blankly staring at the computer in front of him, pretending that he doesn't hear the words that are coming out of my mouth right now. So we'll do that next. But first, an update on the latest in the world of women's sports presented by Wawa. Chicken how you wanna at Wawa with customizable, crispy, or roasted chicken sandwiches. It's Hoffman Show. We're on the team at 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Again, tons of breaking news today for the Wizards. You got the Kyle Kuzma trade to the Bucks. You got Jonas Valanciunas going to the Kings. We've talked about it pretty much all show long. So we are going to, if there's any more news, we'll cover it. If there's any breaking sound, like Brian Keefe, his press conference is not going to give us anything on that because he can't talk about it because it's not official yet. There's all those kinds of things. Oh, that's an interesting one, Anthony, on SportsCenter. They just popped up. Preseason MVP favorites to be traded mid-season. You know who the last guy was in any sport? That would be relevant here?
No.
Luka was why they're doing this.
Oh, before that, I don't know.
Juan Soto from the Nationals to the Padres. So there's that. We're gonna do some Super Bowl prop bets in a few minutes, but first, Anthony, we didn't pick the Super Bowl yet, did we? Or did we do that last? You were out last week.
I haven't picked the Super Bowl. I don't have a dog in the fight.
So if we're talking about the not first impressions elections, competition Wednesday for the Super Bowl, we can just pick the game. But then I would also like to do some prop bet fun coming up.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna do this live here, in part because I was planning on doing this earlier in the show, and then we had all the breaking news and all the things. The breaking news is supposed to fill the show tomorrow, not today. What are we doing? But Anthony, I think we should tally our totals for the year.
Oh man.
Now, my question would be, do you want to tally them for our competition Wednesday? Do you want to tally them total records or weeks won? Like
weeks won.
Okay.
Actually,
weeks
no.
one will be a lot simpler for us to do.
Yeah, but I think if we did record, because there are a couple of weeks you went 0-3.
There were also a couple of weeks that you went 0-3.
All right, never mind. Let's not talk about those. Let's just go weeks one.
Okay. First week, I went 3-0. You went 2-1. So why don't you write down these records? Because then at least we can add them up at the end. But we will keep a running tally of what we got. So the first week, week 6 is when we started competition Wednesday, Anthony. I went 3-0. You went 2-1. So that's 1 for me. Second week, I went 1-0, 2-1. Why did I do this way? Oh, I actually counted this up. Oh, I went 3-0 again. And you went 2-1. So that's 2 for me. The third week, I went 2-1. You went 0-3. I promise it does turn and get better for you eventually. We're now in week 9. You went 1-2. I went 2-1. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4 in a row for me. The next week, we both went 2-1. I won the tiebreaker. So that's 5 in a row for me, but 2-1 on the records. Week 11, Anthony, I think this is when you got off the schneid. You went 2-1. I went 1-2. So that's 5-1 in terms of the weeks. At this point, though, after the following week, where I went 3-0 again and you went 1-2, I'm 16-5. You're 10-11 on the season. It is 6-1 in terms of the weeklies. Anthony, the next week I went 3-0 again. You went 2-1.
Week 12, you went 3-0 and I went 1-2.
Yes. I have the records to this point in the season.
You already have. I was
but
tallying.
I would say you should tally anyway, just to make sure. I went 3-0 in week 13. You went 2-1.
This is ridiculous, dude.
It really was ridiculous. Now that I look back on it, I was really good to start this. Week 14 is I think where my hot streak ended. I went 3-0. You went 2-1. So at that point in the season, week 14, I was 22-5 against the spread. You were 14-3. 13, which still is good. You were above 500. The next week.
Not good enough.
Oh, the next week is not when it ended. I went 2-1. You went 1-2. Is this 7, 8-1? What are we at now?
Week 15.
Yeah. I think that's 8-1. The next week's when it ended. You went 3-0.
Is this week 15?
This is week 16. Week 15, I went 2-1. You went 1-2.
God damn.
Week 16, I went 0-2-1.
Good.
You went 3-0.
Dang, 0-2-1. That's pretty bad.
You would know. Week 17. Oh God, now I gotta have to do this live. 1, 2. You went 2-1. I went 0-3. This was when I hit the real skids.
PU.
Week 18. We both sucked. I went 0-3. You went 1-2.
Okay. So I ended on a 3-game winning streak.
You did. Unfortunately, you were down, I think it was 9-1 before that.
Who was counting?
I was.
Okay.
Wild card weekend.
God damn. I really got whooped.
Wild card weekend, we tied. We both went 1-2. Divisional weekend, I went 2-0. You went 1-1. Conference championship weekend, we both went 1-1. We bet on Washington. That was a bad idea. So that leaves us to Competition Wednesday. Entering the Super Bowl. Anthony, have you tallied the actual totals as you've gone here, or you just have a bunch of marks down and you got to now actually do the math?
So I didn't do the playoffs.
You didn't include the playoffs.
No.
Okay.
But outside of that, so I was 14-13. You were 24-5. Now that math doesn't math. I'm gonna have to tally these up.
Okay, we're gonna take a break. We're gonna come back. Anthony's gonna give us the records. We will pick the Super Bowl Competition Wednesday style, and we will also determine what Anthony has to do as season-long punishment for not winning. That's next on The Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the team 980. Everything okay over there, Anthony? You're doing a lot of counting.
Oh, I was touching the screen to see if it was touchscreen.
Is it a touchscreen?
No.
No. This one, I was told I would have a touchscreen over here. And one of these screens is a touchscreen. I think this one actually is, but the touchscreen hadn't worked since like the 5th week of the show. Do you have one of your screens as a touchscreen?
Nope.
Did you think that you did?
I was just curious in the moment.
You had never you've been sitting in that chair for how many years?
A long time.
How many shows did you do with Travis? How many years?
A long time.
Never crossed your mind to check before?
No.
Oh, okay. Would you like it to be a touchscreen?
No.
You sure?
Nah, because I accidentally just hit the screen, like when I was stretching. And I wasn't sure if it was going to, go to another commercial break or what was going to happen. So
nothing, because it's not a touchscreen.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing. It's not.
Okay.
Could have been bad.
I see. Yeah, this supposed to be a touchscreen, not a touchscreen. All right, Anthony, what's the final damage? Competition Wednesday. See, by the way, for those that are like, what are you guys talking about? Anthony and I pick games against the spread every single week. We each pick 3 games off the NFL schedule. We called it Competition Wednesday because that's what the Commanders did. They had their Competition Wednesday. We wanted in on the action. So we found a way to compete against each other. And in the end of that competition, Anthony Haney, the results look like.
Tell me if this adds up, Craig.
Oh, God.
I'm confused a little bit. So the final tally I have is you went 24, 12, and 1. Well, this excludes the playoffs.
Well, did I not win a game in the last 3 weeks of the season?
No, you went 0-2 and 1.
Oh, no, that's right. Then, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but then I get to my side of the situation.
You said 24, 12, and 1? Right? That's what you said?
24, 12, and 1 for you.
Yeah.
Doesn't that just add up to 37?
Let's see. I was 24 and 6 there. Then I would be 24, 8 and 1. And then I lost 6 more. It's because it's 24, 14 and 1.
Yeah.
You're missing 2 L's.
That's what I'm saying. It doesn't make sense.
What's your total?
21 and 18.
21 and 18 is 39. Yeah. I was 24. Yeah, you're missing 2. It's 24, 14, and 1.
Oh, so you have 14 losses.
Yeah. The week I went 0-2 and 1, you didn't add the 2.
I see what I did. I see what I did now.
Yeah.
I was a little confused. My bad.
It got close at the end. 21 and 18, 24, 14 and 1. Like, it's not bad. Unfortunately, for you, it got worse if you count the playoffs.
It did.
Which is probably why you didn't do it, huh? Anthony, you got one more game to pick, sir.
Yes, I do. And I'm really struggling over here.
I'm not. I'm picking the Chiefs.
All right, tell me the main reason you're picking. Is it because of the refs?
No.
Okay, I'm just curious. A lot of people
Anthony,
seem to think.
So here's what I want you to do. Ready? I want you to say out loud. This is not your pick. I'm not trying to trick you into this. I just want you to say it. I want you to experience how you feel when you say this following sentence out loud. I'm picking against Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl.
I'm picking against Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, baby.
How'd that feel?
Great.
Really?
Yeah. You gave me a line to read. I read it. I put, some personality behind it. It was easy.
Is that how you feel?
Now, that's a different question, Greg.
Because when I say out loud, I'm picking against Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, I want to throw up.
Okay.
That is how everyone that I've talked to about this has felt.
So you want me to mean it when I say it?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to give you an experience to see if viscerally you have the same reaction.
All right, here we go. I'm picking against Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. I couldn't take myself serious, Craig. I'm not gonna, I don't take myself serious. So I think by default, I will be picking the Chiefs. However.
You tried to go Stephen A, and you didn't quite get there.
Nah, dude.
However,
I can't even say I want the Eagles to win.
but
I
that's
don't
the
have
thing.
a dog in the fight, Craig.
I am rooting as much as I am rooting for either side. I am rooting for the Eagles. We talked about this on Take Command this morning, and I almost went go Birds, and I couldn't get that out. I choked on it.
That's nasty.
Yeah,
Craig.
I was like,
nasty.
go, but no, I'm not
nasty.
doing that. I would like the Eagles to win the football game. The Chiefs annoy me. It is multiple people on their team. It's actually not the people that annoy other people, honestly. There's some things about the way the Chiefs have done things over the years that I'm like, I'm good on the Chiefs. I enjoy watching Patrick Mahomes play football. I acknowledge that he's probably the greatest quarterback I'm ever going to see.
Yep.
We'll see what Jaden can do. Hey. No, Pat's on a GOAT track.
Yeah.
Travis Kelce, what that dude does, incredible. And, I enjoy New Heights. I enjoy the podcast. There's other dudes on that roster, whatever, and just they're annoying this year. I love the Saquon. I would love Saquon to win. He's the one guy that I'm actively rooting for.
Yeah.
Which hurts as a player in terms of what he just did to Washington. But as a dude, I am rooting for Saquon. No problem. I want to be wrong here. But if I'm going to have to pick being wrong or right on a pure analysis level, I'm going to try to be right. And I'm going to pick Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs -1.5.
The only thing that gets me about the Eagles, Craig, their fan base. I don't like what they did to our Commanders fans, man.
I don't like that
me
either.
off.
But the Chiefs fans are also awful.
Yeah, we're
between a rock and... This is the Super Bowl nobody wanted. Nobody wanted this game. Anthony, how easy would it be to root for the Buffalo Bills if this was Bills-Eagles?
Easy.
It'd be the greatest time.
Easy.
I would be so much more excited for this game if it was Bills-Eagles. And obviously, if Washington is in it, it's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
But let's pretend for a second we're not Washington people. Let's pretend for a second we are Pittsburgh Steelers fans or Atlanta Falcons fans, which I know exists because y'all were annoying as hell this year too. I'm back in my youth. I'm a Carolina Panthers fan growing up in Greenville, South Carolina. Be rooting like hell for the Commanders if the thing was Commanders-Chiefs. Commanders are an incredibly likable team. The Bills are an incredibly likable team. Up and down the roster, the way they play, all about it. This game sucks. Yep. Except for the part where they're probably the two best teams in the league, and from a football nerd standpoint, I'm excited as hell for this thing.
Yeah, I'm just hoping it's a good game. I don't want a lopsided victory. I don't want the Chiefs Buccaneers game from a couple of years ago. That one stunk a little bit.
That game sucked.
Yeah. So if it's a good game, if it comes down to a James Bradbury pulling on somebody's jersey, all right, it was a good game. It was a good game.
That honestly is my one wish. Please don't let this come down to a call late, especially if it favors the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Honestly, a call late that favors the Eagles, as long as it's the correct call. But then it makes all the people with their Chiefs tinfoil hats on, makes them look like boobs. I'm here for that. I want them to look as dumb as possible. I want it to be a tight call that's correctly called the Eagles' way.
Uh-huh.
That's actually, now I want that. Let's go, refs. Let's go, refs.
We're going to see, man. We know the star. We know the guys in stripes are going to show up.
We want
shine.
stars. We don't want stripes, if you will. What's your pick?
Where you going? You're going the Chiefs?
Chiefs -1.5.
Well, guess what, Craig? Give me the Eagles, baby.
Okay.
For no rhyme, no reason at all. I've already lost, I've already lost the season-long competition Wednesday.
You sure have.
How can things get even worse for the boy? Give me the Eagles, baby.
I'm
going
think
out on top.
I think your punishment should be that you have to wear the Rooster sweater at your middle school or at prep for an entire lunch period or breakfast period.
Well, I've already told you. I would definitely prefer to do it at my middle school. So that means I need to do it in my high school, right?
I think that's not what you said yesterday. I pay attention on this show, Anthony. I think you have to do it at the middle school at lunchtime.
The middle school would be so crazy. Like, my coworkers are menaces.
I need one of those menaces to take video of this.
Oh, they will. I promise you. I walk through the door, phones will go up, kids will be questioning what I got going on.
And to be clear, here's what we need. It's the Rooster sweater, the Groucho Marx glasses, the fedora hat,
Yup.
and a sign or a sticky note or something that says, "I am bad at picking football games."
Yeah. I think that'll get a rise out of the kids, out of my coworkers, out of you, because you'll thoroughly enjoy the content.
Yeah.
And then YouTube will probably see it as well.
Yeah, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all of them.
God. Every social media.
Yeah. Blue Sky, you can have it too.
Man. Or should it be one of a Chiefs or a Eagles?
No. It's the Rooster sweater.
Okay. Just curious.
It's the Rooster sweater. Do you still have it? Or is Russell? We need to get Russell to bring it back.
We got to get Russell to bring it back.
Okay. All right. Yesterday, it was around this time, we promised you my favorite prop bet from the Super Bowl. We will give you that next after a quick look at what's trending. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. Tomorrow on the show, Super Bowl preview with our guy Dan Pizzuta. Did we ever lock in Ed tomorrow, Anthony? Do we need to touch base with Darius?
Yeah, let me hit him because he didn't necessarily confirm the time.
Okay, we might have Super Bowl champ on the show tomorrow, who's also got a Washington tie. So that's tomorrow. We'll also start getting a little bit more into the game. Sure, there'll be some more Wizards and NBA trade. I mean, the NBA trade deadline's at 3:00 tomorrow, so we might have like a Kevin Durant trade, a Jimmy Butler trade. Who knows what else could happen between now and then tomorrow. So that'll be tomorrow. We'll figure that out then. As for right now, wrapping up on the here and now of today, I promised you a Super Bowl prop bet that I love. This one was going for plus 900 on FanDuel. And when Tony brought it to my attention earlier this week on the internet show, Anthony, combine rushing yards for Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes. Over 100, you get plus 900 odds. That means you put down 10, you get $100 back. That's a bet worth making, in my opinion. The way Pat scrambles, and they've used him as a design runner, and the way Jalen is used as a design runner. I mean, if one of these guys gets a 30-yard scramble, you're a third of the way there. Not to mention the other damage that gets done over time. I love that bet. The rate, and also, you know, Jalen's been sliding a lot more. Like, it's a Super Bowl. He's going to be going for it. I love that one. That's one of my favorite prop bets on the board.
Nah, I like it as well, especially because, I mean, as you just highlighted, even with, you know, what the Commanders did with Jaden, they didn't, you know, have a ton of design runs. I think they, you know, strategically ran him more in the playoffs. And I think in a game like this, even when Mahomes scored against the Bills on a read option, we ain't seen Mahomes do a read option in a while where he, you know, ended up keeping the ball. So I think for the Super Bowl, you have to utilize everything. And if he ends the game, you know, with a bruised shoulder, oh well. But guess what? They probably won the Super Bowl because of, you know, him using his legs and that just being an extra weapon. So I love the pick. I just looked it up. Patrick Mahomes' most rush yards in a playoff game, 69 yards. So he is no stranger to running the ball.
Yeah, he could rush for 70 yards in a playoff game. Like, he does this frequently.
I love it, correct.
And then, for Jalen. Some other ones, CBS Sports did a fun article where they have all their staff pick a bunch of prop bets. One of them, Travis Kelce, 15.5 miles an hour under. Is minus 116 on FanDuel.
That's actually hilarious.
But if he gets out in the open field up a seam route once, it's like as a ball carrier, not just as a route runner.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's a fun one. Jalen Hurts rushing attempts at 9.5 is the number. That's a big number.
Quick question: do sacks count as
no?
one?
Not
Okay.
college. They do. Pro they don't.
All right.
Let's see. What else? Over under 2.5 total fourth down conversions. People think that's obviously over. I don't know about that.
The tush push on 4th and 1 from the 39-yard line. I think they're going to kick with the kicking struggles. I think they're going to go for it with the kicking.
Yeah,
struggles
I think
that
like just how often is the situation going to come up? And like I do think these are two coaches that like if it's Dan Quinn and Dan Campbell, they're going for it on 4th and 5. I don't think these coaches are 4th and 5 go for it type of coaches.
All right, Craig. Second half though, both teams haven't been able to stop either team.
Yeah,
it's one of those games where you got Josh Allen and Mahomes on the opposite side. You don't really want to give that guy the ball back. I think they go for it on 4th down.
No, that's a good point. Last play of the game to be a quarterback kneel. Yes, minus 188. That's kind of a fun one. And it's also I hate bets like that though, and unders are always like just terrible to root for.
Have we seen that recently? A quarterback nailed it in a game?
I mean, yeah.
I guess it did happen. Yeah, I guess.
Eagles definitely kneeled it out. I think the Chiefs actually kneeled it out against the Bills, right? Because they got the 4th down stop.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Yep.
It just takes one play. There was another one that Tony liked a lot that was, I think, really fun. He loved the number. I think it was like plus 400 for will there be a scoreless quarter? I was like, you lose me on that one.
Yeah, I don't like that one.
I think there's too much.
Yeah.
Too many. Just like kick a field goal. Whatever.
At least a field goal.
Yeah, but I do think it's going to be a defensive game, so it's not outrageous. All right. Last but not least.
Real things.
We're not going to be sucked this year.
Real people.
5-11, not very good.
Said into real microphones.
You know, the culture is actually damn good.
All right, Jaden Daniels was making the rounds on Radio Row today. He was on Scoop City with Diana Rossini, who asked him top 5 plays of the season, not in order.
What are your top 5 favorite plays from this season? I just need the game and the play call. Right? I know you know them. So they don't have to be in order of best to greatest, but what stands out to you? Just give me 5 that you can rattle off that you're like, oh, that was good.
Okay.
Game, play call.
Okay. Play calls is tough. We'll be giving our plays away because we say a lot. I'll say no order. Cincinnati game, on a 3rd down I threw to Terry for a touchdown. Philly game at home, the 2nd time we played them, the game winning touchdown. The Hail Mary's in there.
It's got to be in there.
It has to be in there.
No play call there.
No play call there. I would say favorite plays, sheesh. 4th and 2 versus Tampa, playoff game. And I would say the last one would be Detroit game where I threw the bomb to De'Ami Brown. Those are my favorite plays.
Okay.
That's a great list. That is a phenomenal list. I want to unpack that more tomorrow. But we're out of show for today. See you then.